President Trump is correct about his interpretation of the Presidential Records Act and what it allows him to do, and virtually every legal expert or those who pretend to be legal experts and media voices like Caitlin Collins are wrong. Trump is the most abused political figure in the modern era, certainly here in the United States. When you see what's happening to him in New York with the really abusive and reckless and unprecedented targeting of him by Alvin Bragg, you see how he's being abused there. You saw with this jury verdict, and I don't understand a jury verdict. Maybe I'm dumb, right? I don't understand how a jury can say, well, this woman wasn't raped, or the preponderance of evidence shows that she wasn't raped, and then go after the Trump for defaming her by denying he raped her. Forgive me for being confused about that. And of course, a lot of her claims were in court because the New York legislature passed a law to eliminate the statute of limitations for a year, because this incident allegedly took place 30 years ago, and it was widely recognized they were doing it to get Trump, to give this woman, Carol, an opportunity to litigate against Trump. Not all of her claims, but key components of the claims. So he's an enemy of the state. He's an enemy of the state in New York, and he's an enemy of the state here in Washington, D.C. And the left doesn't want him to defend himself. You see this in reaction to his appearance on CNN. He was there as a presidential candidate. It was a town hall up in New Hampshire, I guess, with Republicans. And the left was furious because Trump was aggressive in defending himself. He said things they don't like. They pretended everything he said was a, quote, a lie, and he needed to be fact-checked when, in my view, much of what he said was materially true. I mean, they pretend because he gets a detail wrong here or there, a detail, in my view, that's typically irrelevant to the larger point, that he needs to be fact-checked. And the American people see through that. And I know they see through that, which is why they don't like him speaking at all. And I think the reaction to his CNN speech is going to be more abuse. He's already being abused with the prosecution in New York. He's probably going to get indicted in Fulton County, Georgia, by Democrats for daring to dispute and exercise his First Amendment rights and do his job as president there over the election. They're telling us to forget the 2020 election while they're trying to jail Trump for doing everything he's able to do under law to dispute the 2020 election. So which is it, folks? Are we supposed to forget it and not talk about it? Or do we spend our entire next 2 years presidential campaign talking about it because they're trying to jail the guy for disputing the last election? And of course, here in Washington, D.C., you have this special counsel that the Garland DOJ has stick on Trump for, again, his activities related to disputing an election under law, exercising First Amendment speech, and this fake document story dispute that they've manufactured against Trump. Now, Trump, again, was raising issues and defenses about the document case, and what was her name, Caitlin Collins, was saying, well, she read the Presidential Records Act, and he's wrong. I'm going to repeat again. President Trump is correct about his interpretation of the Presidential Records Act and what it allows him to do, and virtually every legal expert or those who pretend to be legal experts and media voices like Caitlin Collins are wrong about it. Now, how do I know that Trump is right? Because Judicial Watch has, first of all, 30 years experience almost in litigating presidential records disputes. So our expertise, I dare say, is second to none. Secondly, we had litigation specifically on this issue when we asked for the Presidential Records Act to be applied to Clinton tapes that Bill Clinton had where he was recorded talking to foreign government leaders and members of Congress. And we thought at the time, this is 10, 12 years ago now, I think, 2009 maybe, we found out about it. Well, maybe these are presidential records. Why aren't they being cataloged as such and made available? And we went to the archives. The archives says no. Justice Department says no. And a federal court said no to us. And what did the archives and the Justice Department and the court all agree upon? That the president had discretion as to what to classify as records, whether to classify records as personal or presidential. And the archives, certainly after a presidency, had no way of second-guessing the president. In fact, because we thought these records were classified because they were talking, he had recordations, according to reports of Clinton talking to foreign leaders, that stuff is presumptively classified. The Justice Department said, well, that includes, and the court included, it necessarily includes declassification. If you call them personal, they're declassified, and the president has that ultimate constitutional authority. He's the #1 declassification authority in the federal government. And his decisions to declassify records, which he can do by saying, I want to declassify them, or effectively by showing them to someone who doesn't have authority to review them otherwise, meaning let's say there's a guest in the Oval Office, or maybe a foreign leader, and he says, I got this map here. I want to show it to you because I'm trying to do my job. It's declassified. And the Justice Department told the court in our Clinton sock drawer case, as it's been famously known since, if the president has records after he leaves office, they're presumptively personal. And they did a 180 when it came to Trump. So they've been lying to the American people, frankly misleading the courts, about the legal status of those records. So every time you say Trump had classified records, that's in dispute. That he had government records, that's in dispute. Why is it in dispute? Because the prior position of the Justice Department was the complete opposite. The prior position of the National Archives was the complete opposite when it came to Bill Clinton. And then it turns out President Biden had records from his days as vice president. They didn't raid his home, even though his lawyers were playing games. They didn't publicize those records immediately, even though they knew about them as they're harassing Trump with leaks and vicious other smears. And he has records from his days as Senate. Still no raid, still no grand jury investigation, still no harassment of all the president's men and women like they're doing to Trump, even though allegedly there's a special counsel looking at it. So thank you, CNN, for giving me a chance to go over how abusive the records case that's being pursued in federal court in an effort to try to jail Trump is. Now, the special counsel hasn't made any decisions whether to charge him or not, but you know where they want to go, right? You know where they want to go. He's still sniffing around this issue. It's an easy call. Frankly, there should be an investigation of the abuse of Trump by the archives and the Justice Department and the FBI, not only concocting this dispute about records, but then using it as a pretext to raid his home. So we've got much litigation on this. We're in the middle of it, folks, in more ways than you can imagine. The media likes to blame me for, Trump doing this. It's ridiculous. It's the law. Court decisions saying you can't second guess the president. Oh, Tom Fitton told Trump this. Well, first of all, they don't know what they're talking about. But B, I told you what the law is. I told you what the prior Justice Department positions have been. And there's no rational or reasonable response to what I've said. Talk about the big lie. That's part of the big lie. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.